It was a normal Wednesday evening when I received the text. Just a few words, casual, almost careless. Car broke near my ex's. I'll spend the night. My stomach twisted as I read it. Sarah, my wife of 6 years, had always been independent, confident, and surprisingly blunt. But this message, it felt like a punch I hadn't seen coming. For a split second I hesitated. My instincts screamed red flags, but I kept my fingers still. I wanted to respond with calm, to maintain control of a situation that was already spiraling. I typed slowly. No rush, drive safely. I didn't panic. I didn't call, I didn't demand explanations. I had learned over the years that desperation and anger never help in moments like these. Instead, I watched, silently observing her patterns, noting inconsistencies, and most importantly, waiting. Waiting for her to reveal her true intentions, because people who lie often leave traces, and Sarah had no idea how observant I could be. The night stretched on, each hour heavier than the last. My phone remained silent for a while. Then came a few short replies, evasive, vague. Everything's fine, she wrote. Don't worry. But the words carried the weight of something unsaid, something she hoped I wouldn't notice. I did. Every subtle hint, every delayed response, every defensive tone. I saw it all. Over the next few days, tension built quietly. I noticed the slight change in her behavior. Secretive phone calls, sudden errands, and that familiar fleeting nervousness whenever I asked about her plans. My mind pieced together scenarios, possibilities, and worst-case outcomes. The truth was forming slowly, like ice creeping over a lake, inevitable and cold. I didn't jump to accusations. I didn't lash out. I simply prepared. Because I knew that if this was about betrayal, as my instincts screamed, it would be much more than just a late-night inconvenience. And Sarah's careless message was the first domino to fall, signaling a chain reaction that neither of us could stop. By the time the weekend came, I knew the reality was unavoidable. Sarah wasn't coming back as the partner I had trusted. Her text wasn't about her car. It was about the choices she had made, and how those choices would ultimately shape the end of our marriage. The following days were a blur of tension and silent observation. Sarah acted normal on the surface, smiling at me, pretending nothing had happened. But I noticed the small things, the lingering glances at her phone, the subtle hesitations in her speech, the way she avoided eye contact when I asked simple questions. Every detail added up, painting a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I began documenting everything. Texts, phone calls, the time she left the house, the excuses she gave. Each piece of evidence was like a puzzle piece, slowly revealing the full scope of her betrayal. The realization hit me with a cold clarity. Sarah had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. Her car trouble was no accident. It was an opportunity, carefully timed, a gateway to her secret life. Then came the confrontation I had been preparing for. I sat her down, voice calm, eyes steady. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said. No anger, no accusations, just truth. She tried to deflect, to charm her way out with excuses and smiles, but it didn't work this time. I had all the facts, all the inconsistencies, all the signs she thought I would overlook. Her reactions were telling. Panic flashed in her eyes, followed by defensiveness, then a resigned silence. I didn't need a confession. The truth was already clear in every word, every hesitation. Sarah realized that her carefully crafted plan was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to save it. In the days that followed, the tension escalated. She called, texted, tried to manipulate, but I maintained my distance. Every attempt to gaslight me, to spin the narrative in her favor, failed. I wasn't reacting with fear or anger. I was observing, calculating, and preparing the next steps. Finally, the inevitable happened. The betrayal she had tried to hide, the choices she had made, and the lies she had spun could no longer be contained. Divorce papers appeared on the table, delivered with quiet finality. Sarah stared, unable to meet my eyes. The woman who had once been so confident, so untouchable, was now facing the consequences of her actions. In that moment, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for what had been lost, for the life we had shared and the trust that had been shattered. Relief that the truth had emerged, that the deception could no longer continue, and that justice in its quiet, patient form had been served. The day the divorce papers were signed, the reality fully sank in. Sarah had lost everything: our shared home, the security she had taken for granted, and the carefully constructed image she had projected to the world. The betrayal she had thought would go unnoticed had been exposed, and the consequences were absolute. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. Instead, I felt a quiet sense of closure. For months I had watched the signs, prepared for the inevitable, and acted with patience. Sarah had assumed that my love and trust were weaknesses she could exploit, but in her arrogance, she had underestimated my resolve, my observation, and my ability to act decisively without losing control. She tried to justify herself, her late-night texts, the excuses, the endless evasions, but I didn't respond. Words had lost their power. The evidence, the betrayals, and the consequences spoke louder than any argument could. She realized, perhaps too late, that trust once broken cannot be easily repaired, and manipulation has a price far steeper than she had imagined. As the final signatures were filed, I walked away from the courthouse not with anger, but with a profound understanding of boundaries and consequences. Sarah had chosen a path of deception, believing she could escape accountability. But truth, as it always does, found its way. And in its wake it left her alone, isolated and facing a life of her own making. The aftermath was silent but revealing. Friends who had once supported her slowly drifted away, wary of the lies and the chaos she had sown. Colleagues who had admired her ambition now questioned her integrity. Her world, once bustling with connections and influence, had contracted into emptiness. She had attempted to destroy me, to manipulate our life and my trust, but in doing so she had destroyed herself. I reflect on that period often, not with vengeance but with clarity. Her choices were hers, but the consequences were undeniable. Every text, every lie, every calculated move led her to this inevitable conclusion. And as I moved forward, free from deception and betrayal, I realized the power of patience, awareness, and measured action. Sarah's story is a cautionary tale, one of arrogance, betrayal, and the ultimate price of manipulating love and trust. She wanted to play games, to test the boundaries of my patience and loyalty. In the end, those games cost her everything. And as I rebuild my life, the lesson remains crystal clear. Deceit may seem tempting, but truth has a way of catching up, and when it does, there is no escaping the consequences.